Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about including BIPOC voices, or Black, Indigenous, and People of Color voices, in Nebraska climate policies. I'm Erin O'Sullivan, and my partners for the project were Meg Rice and Jeanette Uzumakunda. We worked alongside Stephen Kirshner from Our Climate to complete our project. Climate change is happening now. Globally, we are facing significant economic, social, and environmental risks as we confront the challenges associated with climate change. Listed is some of the evidence pointing that climate change is real and is happening right now. Climate change at a local scale for Nebraska is a huge deal. A study done by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln called Understanding and Addressing Climate Change: Implications for Nebraska documents many of the key challenges that Nebraska will face as a result of climate change. The magnitude and speed of the projected changes in climate are unprecedented, and their implications for the health of our planet and the legacy we leave to our children, our grandchildren, and future generations are of vital concern. We need to develop strategies now to adapt to the changes, and this process must begin at the local level. Climate change is happening now in our state, our city, and home, and we need to act now. We know that climate change is having and will continue to have drastic effects on our communities. However, Nebraska does not have a plan to help deal with climate crisis effects. In addition to that, BIPOC communities are disproportionately affected by climate change. To sum it up, we need an equitable state climate action plan to protect all of Nebraskans and not just the wealthy and the white. As mentioned before, Our Climate was our client for this project. Our Climate is an organization that is dedicated to empowering generations most affected by the climate crisis to advocate for science-based and equitable policies to protect a livable world. For our project, Our Climate wanted to learn how they can empower and push for an equitable state climate action plan. Our final project would be a written report that outlines how they can better engage with BIPOC communities to get them involved in the creation of the Nebraska's state climate action plan. For our project, we combined research and public input to develop a written report that Our Climate can implement. First, we researched other state climate action plans and how the Nebraska government policy process works to get a better understanding of what it is needed to pass such a statewide plan. Then, we listened and gathered input throughout a community-wide survey and a listening session. Once we learned and listened, we developed a plan on how Our Climate can engage with BIPOC communities and how they can help them uh, have an effect on the creation of the state climate action plan. From our listening session, we learned that many BIPOC communities are dealing with so many other social justice issues in their day-to-day lives. Climate change is usually not their main focus. This gave us the idea to focus on educating BIPOC communities not just on climate change, but more so how environmental racism ties into social justice issues that they do know more about. Our survey had 60 respondents, with the majority of them being white and having some college education. We tried to do as much outreach as possible to expand our diversity within our respondents. If the survey was used again, we would make sure to follow up with individuals who agreed to sending out the survey link to the groups and communities they were in. This slide represents some of our results from the main questions. 65% of respondents completely agree that climate change, justice, racism, and oppression are all linked, and 62.7% are very worried about the effects of climate change. We asked survey participants what environmental justice means to them. This graphic is a word cloud that includes their answers, with the more prominent answers being larger than the others. Our outcomes for the project were a presentation on how the Nebraska state government works. This can be presented to young leaders or anyone in the community who want to influence policy but may not know how it all works. We had the listening session and survey, which can be used as a basic format and outline for future listening sessions and surveys. Finally, we created a report for our climate with what we did in our time working with them, as well as how they can engage with BIC communities and help them have an impact on the Nebraska State Climate Action Plan. Listed on the slide are some of our recommendations and reflections our group had. Because BIPOC communities are not as aware or knowledgeable of climate change, our recommendation is that our climate pair up with organizations already affiliated in the BIPOC communities like the NAACP, APU, churches, and other BIPOC groups on college campuses and provide them educational resources like our presentation and listening session. This will give BIPOC's communities the chance to lead the climate movement themselves in their own communities. Giving one or two people the knowledge is enough to spark the fire, and they can go back and change the groups and their communities that they are involved in. Any questions?